Welcome to International School Michel Lucius. As an established international school, we've been offering an international curriculum taught in English to secondary school students since 2011. Our curriculum is entirely taught in English alongside flexible language tuition in French and German. When it comes to our student population, this is highly diverse with more than 70 nationalities represented among approximately 400 primary school pupils and 1,400 secondary school students. When it comes to our mission, it's very clear. We put the learner at the centre of what we do. Our curriculum is rich, balanced, exciting, and we aim for our learners to become inquirers, to engage in problem solving, to be adaptive in their learning, to communicate effectively, and to take responsibility as members of their school community and beyond. Overall, at the school, we have a primary section and a secondary section. In primary school, we start with Key Stage 1. This is Year 1 and Year 2 at the age of 6. Children then move on to Key Stage 2, Years 3 to Year 6, at the end of which they will complete their Cambridge checkpoints. This is the point at which they will enter secondary school in Key Stage 3, starting with 7 IEC, 6 IEC and 5 IEC. This 3-year cycle is finished off again with a Cambridge checkpoint at the end. At this point, students will start studying for the International GCSE in a 2-year programme, combining classes 4 IEC and 3 IEC, and they will finish off with their International A-Level or their Cambridge AICE Diploma in 2 IEC and 1 IEC. For us, it's very clear that the world in which the students that are currently going to school live is very fast-paced and changing. If we simply look at the Future of Jobs report from the World Economic Forum, we know that this generation of students will have to and will engage in work and jobs that still don't exist at this particular point in time. And this, of course, is a challenge for schools because we have to think and prepare students for a future that is still fairly uncertain at this point. The Future of Jobs report gives us a few examples of the types of roles that will emerge in the next few years. Here are some examples: new technology specialists, artificial intelligence and machine learning specialists, culture and people specialists. And these are all fairly vague, but what is very clear is that the students will have to develop a set of transferable skills and the confidence to be able to deal with these new and emerging roles when they leave school, go to university and enter the world of work. So this, for us as a school, puts the importance on skills-based learning. And even without looking to the future, if we just look at what's happening right now in the world, we already know that employers are very much looking for students and new employees to have transferable skills. So 1 in 3 skills in the job posting is a soft skill or a transferable skill. Similarly, roughly 90% of university professors don't think that students have the research skills that they need to do degree level study. And again, this is the responsibility of us, our responsibility to make sure that the students are well prepared for when they enter university and the world of work. With this in mind, we've developed a learner profile. This is very much a set of attributes that we're working towards with our students. This applies to the little ones in Year 1 and ties the whole school together all the way up to the international A-levels at the very end. There's 2 broad components of the learner profile. On the one hand, we have our ways of thinking. This is more the cognitive and interpersonal domain. We would like our students to learn to analyze, to evaluate, to be problem solvers. They develop their inquiry skills, research skills, and they build their understanding and their knowledge through this. And they're adaptive learners. We would like them to reflect on their learning, to know where they're at with their learning, to self-regulate, to make decisions and to take risks after all. On the other hand, there are different ways of working together. So for instance, our students learn to communicate effectively, to present, collaborate, to negotiate, to show evidence of leadership, and then in that sense they become responsible citizens of their actual school community. Being a very diverse school community, it's very important for us that students are actively engaged and we help them develop their skills in terms of being open-minded, empathizing, taking perspectives, switching perspectives, and above all, to care. When it comes to our approaches to learning, we look towards research. Here are a few examples of the types of sources that influence our development at the school, our continued professional development for our teachers, and also give you a bit of a flavour of what learning can look like in our school. First and foremost, we would like our learning to be meaningful and deep. We move away from surface learning and learning that students feel is not connected to their everyday life. When we look at meaningful learning and deep learning, we could go to the words of Michael Fullan, who says that learning that engages the world changes the world. It's very important that what the students learn in the classroom, they see how they can apply it outside and vice versa. This is a challenging task for students and teachers alike, and what's very important there is that we have the right pastoral care that goes alongside of it. Our staff work hard with the students so that they can develop a growth mindset. Within a growth mindset, if students don't know how to do something, it's simply because they don't know how to do it yet. And we value effort. We value the hard work and the process that they're going through. We see challenges as opportunities for learning rather than something that is insurmountable. Learning should be visible. Visible learning is a term that is widely used in education across the world, and it encompasses many different things. But for us at the school, it's very important that students know what their learning objectives are, they know what they're working towards, and they engage actively in their learning. And that they learn to think about how they are achieving what we're setting out to do at the very beginning. And that they can self-regulate, and this then takes us back to our learning profile again. Our teachers actively engage in continued professional development along those lines, and this of course then transfers into the classroom as well, and as such has an influence on the experience that the students are getting while they're learning in our classrooms at the school. If you take some simple examples, this pyramid that you see here is called Bloom's taxonomy. Bloom's taxonomy has been around for many, many years and helps us to get an understanding of what education systems look like and also what a certain curriculum may look like. Traditionally speaking, often schools have been at the bottom of this pyramid. It's about remembering information and understanding information. The international curriculum offered at ISML very much focuses on the upper levels of this pyramid. It's about applying the knowledge to the skills. It's learning to analyze, it's learning to evaluate, and above all, learning to create. And it's not the case that we start in year one at the bottom of the pyramid and we work our way up. We can start to evaluate and to analyze at the age of 6, and we just will go into more and more depth with this particular skill as we move through the years. Here's some simple examples. For instance, in biology, students and even the young children in the primary school, they learn to design experiments and they learn to understand what is a hypothesis and they learn to come up with this, and then they design the experiment to test the hypothesis. In history, as opposed to remembering a long list of dates and places, it's much more about working with actual sources. It's about, for instance, predicting what would happen if. This requires a whole different type of skill set than literally remembering and understanding. In algebra, for example, students will be asked to evaluate the reasonableness of an answer. We all know what it's like these days. We all use technology to get to the answer quickly, and a lot of answers are freely available. It's very important to be able to evaluate the information that students find critically and to assess and to decide whether we can trust this information and whether this is a reasonable answer or a reasonable and trustworthy source. All of our international qualifications are provided by Cambridge Assessment International Education. This is an international awarding body, and they offer internationally recognized and competitive university entry-level qualifications. There's a lot of information available on the Cambridge Assessment International Education website, and we would warmly invite you as well to browse these websites to get a bit of a feel for what this Cambridge network is like. There are many, many schools across the globe that offer these qualifications, and these again not only help our final year students when they go to university because these are recognized by universities globally, but they also help mobile families who might be relocated to transfer to another international school. The children at our school, at our international school, they follow an internationally standardized and benchmarked curriculum, and that gives you the certainty that the children are learning, working towards standards that are internationally recognized. When it comes to the curriculum content, there are different stages. For instance, in Key Stage 3, you see here a range of subjects. It's a broad curriculum at this point, including English, Maths and the Sciences, the Expressive Arts, the Creative Arts, the Humanities, and we also then have the languages, French, German and Luxembourgish. In Key Stage 4, the choice gets a little broader, and at this point is a combination of mandatory subjects but also optional subjects. At Key Stage 5, we have a whole range of subjects here, and there's a lot more flexibility in terms of how these are put together and how we can build, I suppose, one curriculum, one path for the students, all in line with what they'd like to study once they leave school. What's worth bearing in mind, if you're not familiar with this type of education system, is that we start broad and we specialize as we go through the years. As we specialize, it becomes much, much more flexible. So while we are in Key Stage 4, we still have a combination of compulsory and optional subjects. By Key Stage 5, there are no more compulsory subjects. It's all done bearing in mind what the university entry criteria are. So therefore, each student's path can look a little different. Language learning is an important topic. In every country, but also particularly in a country like Luxembourg that has societal multilingualism, wherever you go, you'll be faced with making decisions about language. Multilingualism for us is an asset and not a barrier. At no point should a language be a barrier to achievement and learning and progress at school. When we're looking at how we've built the language offer at the school, we've looked again towards research. And there are two types of motivation for language learning, and you may well recognize yourself in one or even both of these. There's what we call an instrumental motivation. These are practical reasons. For instance, I need to learn this language because I would like to get this particular job, and one of the conditions is that I can speak French. Therefore, I am motivated to learn French. Another type of motivation is called an integrative motivation. These are much more personal reasons. An integrative motivation comes down to the wish to become part of a group, to become part of a society, to get to know certain people better because they speak that particular language. And we know from the research that actually integrative motivation is more effective than instrumental motivation. But both of them play a role. And therefore, at our school, we look at this and we try to combine both of these types of things when we are actually building the curriculum and we're finding ways to motivate students and to give them reasons for why they should be learning these languages and they should be engaging actively in language learning. The language offer at the school is fairly complex. Flexibility is what we do, but of course that comes with decisions to be made and a level of complexity. On this particular slide, you see years 1 all the way up to the 1 IEC, the A-level curriculum. What you find here is that you have Luxembourgish that is taught in the primary school from year 1 all the way up to 5 IEC, so the end of Key Stage 3, so that includes the first 3 years of secondary school. Luxembourgish is taught as a language of integration and communication, and it's taught in groups of students that have varying levels of knowledge and skill in that particular language. Higher up in the secondary school, we do offer the students, so in Key Stage 3, they have the opportunity as well to choose Luxembourgish not just as a language of integration and communication, but also as a language in which they get official qualifications on. So if there is a wish to go further with Luxembourgish, students can. In year 3, children and their parents will have to make the first important decision. The first important decision is whether they will learn French or German at this particular point. If children start to learn German in year 3, they will continue with this until the end of 5 IEC. And they will add the second language, and in our case this would be French, when they enter secondary school in 7 IEC. Which means that in the first 3 years of the secondary school in Key Stage 3, we have these 3 languages that are running alongside of each other, and children will be learning all 3 of these languages. Then when we enter the international GCSE program, we have a degree of flexibility. At this point, it's still mandatory to continue with studying at least one of the languages. So this could be 1 modern foreign language or 2. When we come to Key Stage 5, it can be 1, 2, or none. So here we have a much broader kind of level of flexibility. When it comes to the language qualifications, we work with different types of qualifications and levels of difficulty. So for instance, in 4 IEC and 3 IEC, we offer international GCSE, but we offer them at first language level or at second language level. As a school, we always aim for our students to get the highest possible qualification that suits their background and their prior knowledge as such. So the international GCSEs, first and second language, are available in both French and German, but we also at this point in 4 IEC, for those students who wish to do so, introduce Spanish as a second language as well. So there's a new language that comes in at this particular point in time. When it comes to 2 IEC and 1 IEC, we first of all offer the international A levels alongside all the other subjects. But for those students who'd like to go further, we offer C1 and C2 qualifications. Now, C1 and C2 refers to the European Common Framework of Reference for Languages, starting with A1 all the way up to C2, whereas C2 is the highest level of competence that you can be certified for a particular language. What's the role of English? Now, English has a dual role at our school. First of all, as a language of instruction, but also as a taught language. We've got the same slide here in terms of giving you a bit of an overview of how English is used throughout the school. Now, first of all, it's important to point out that unlike other international education system, we only use one language of instruction, which is English. Now, of course, this does not apply to French lessons or German lessons or Spanish lessons, where we also use the target language to teach, but this refers to all the other subjects where we teach entirely through English. English is then also taught as a language from year 1 until 3 IECs, to the end of the IGCSEs, on a compulsory level. In the final 2 years, when students complete their international A-levels, it is an optional subject like all the other subjects, but there is no requirement to have English as a subject at the very end. What are the types of qualifications that we offer? Again, in 4 IEC and 3 IEC, it's international GCSEs, and in this case, we offer English language, and we only offer it as a first language level. I think that's also really important to point out, simply because this is our language of communication, this is our language of instruction, this is the language we live through at the school, and all the students will be ready to take that type of qualification when they come to the end of 3 IEC. It's also, of course, an important step, even if they don't take and choose that language for their international A-levels, that they need to have achieved that level of English before they can go on and finish their qualifications with us. We also offer optionally a course in world literature. So again, to broaden a little bit, those students who really have an interest in language, they can do so also by engaging in literature. But here again, world literature, this is literature that is read and studied in English, but it comes from all parts of the world and also represents lots of different cultures and backgrounds. When it comes to the final 2 years with international A-levels, we offer both English language and English literature as optional subjects. In Key Stage 4, what would it look like if a student was starting their IGCSEs with us at International School Michel Lucius? Well, for instance, there are a set of mandatory subjects. We have English, mathematics, biology, chemistry, and physics. All students will be following these courses over the course of 2 years. Then we have the mandatory, but with some flexibility. For instance, here, they can choose French or German. They can choose French or Spanish. They can also choose French and German, or French and Spanish. Now, obviously, all of these things are a little bit subject to availability and change, but this is the general setup to give you a bit of a flavor in terms of what it could look like. So at least one language here, but possibly 2. And then there's a range of optional subjects to choose from on design, computer science, economics, geography, global perspectives, history, music, world literature, and the number of subjects that are chosen here depend on how many languages that students are doing. So if they've chosen to do 2 languages, then there's less time, I suppose, in the timetable for them to choose optional subjects. And again, here, these are decisions that families are being guided through, the students are guided through. There's opportunities to find out a little bit more about these subjects, what it means to be studying them at IGCSE. And there's our whole team, homeroom teachers, members of the support staff that help families to make those decisions and to make sure that we can find a curriculum and a set of subjects that suits students' needs and interests. Key Stage 5, the choice is very, very broad. So you see here lots of different types of subjects, some familiar subjects, some new subjects like psychology or business. Again, global perspectives is a subject that is being carried through, and we've got English language, English literature, we've got all the sciences, the arts, music, computer science, so the choice is broad. And there are 2 possible routes at the end. We have what we have been offering for many years, which is a more focused route. This is a route that is offered in many international schools across the globe, and it's the international A-level route. That essentially means that students will do 3 full international A-levels. So in 3 subjects, they will study these particular subjects over the course of 2 years and complete their qualifications at the end of those 2 years. The AS level is the first year of an A-level. So that means that in 2 IEC, the second last year of school, students will be studying 4 subjects. And after that year, they drop one of these and they continue and specialize in 3. So that essentially means that they are going to be finishing with 3.5 A-levels. Why do we call it a focused choice? Because here we can have very much a focused choice if students wish to do so. So we could have the different A-levels could be very scientific, for instance. Out of these 4 subjects, we could have the 3 sciences plus mathematics. That's a very focused choice. And it's a choice that is right for many students, and it's what they'd like to do, and it is what is in line with the requirements for university after that. We have, however, also some students who have much broader interests. And in this particular case, they will then, again, very similar to the focus choice, they choose 3.5 A levels, so 3 A levels and 1 AS level, but from a broader choice of categories of subjects. And by doing that, they're showing versatility, they're showing that they can work across different domains, and they will therefore be awarded with the Cambridge Advanced International Certificate of Education. Now, what does this mean? So we have to think about how to make these choices, and we guide the students through this. We think of the school requirements, so how many subjects, we think of their strengths and interests, we think of whether a focus choices may be more for them, or we think of whether maybe if they've already got broad interests, then they might as well, it's very good for them to aim towards working towards this Cambridge AICE Diploma. And all of this at the end of the day comes back to the university entry criteria, and they vary by country. There's a large team of staff that support students with this. We are a UCAS accredited centre. We help them with their UCAS applications. We help students with applications in countries across the world. Here's an example. So for instance, if we are looking at a student in 2IC, they may have chosen to study English literature, history, psychology and French. At the end of this year, they will be taking their international AS exams. Then they will proceed into 1IC. At this point, the choice is to continue with English literature, history, and French. And their chosen university course could be law, for instance. So here the subjects have been combined in a way that they can and that they do meet the requirements for entry into law, and that they're well prepared to be able to study law. Possibly even with a bit of a European slant to it, because we've got the French language in and so on and so forth. So here there are elements of flexibility. Another example could be a student who chooses to do biology, chemistry, mathematics, and German. We continue with biology, chemistry, mathematics. And it could be that the student goes on to study medicine. There may be changes to this. You may add physics rather than German. What's very important here is that we always look at what is the particular university that the student would like to go to and what are the requirements for entry. Looking at the AICE Diploma, how does it work? So with Cambridge's AICE Diploma, they point out very clearly that it's about acquiring breadth and depth. So it's a curriculum that is broad with a balance of mathematics, science, languages, arts and humanities and interdisciplinary subjects. So again, just to recap, we've got the narrow choice and we've got the broad choice. So here, and with the broad choice, we've got more of a range of different subjects. All students who complete the AICE Diploma study a compulsory course subject called AS Level Global Perspectives and Research. This is an interdisciplinary subject that allows them to develop their research skills and to pull together ideas, skills from different curriculum areas. And if they choose to do it to a full A level rather than just AS level, it will also culminate in a fairly large 5,000 word research essay where they've come up with their own research question, their methodology, have carried out research and have essentially produced a university level type piece of work, again showing their versatility and showing that they are a student who is autonomous in their learning. The other subjects have to be drawn from 3 curriculum areas. So we have to have at least 1 subject from the mathematics and science group, at least 1 language, and at least 1 from the arts and humanities groups. Here's some testimonials that we find. So this is a testimonial from Florida State University that just points out that those students who come to university with the AICE background, they tend to do very, very well. And they point out that that really wasn't surprising considering that the emphasis they have on critical research and analysis. And they point out that that's exactly what they require at university. So the AICE Diploma is a way to stand out. It's a way to stand out from the crowd. It's a way to go beyond. It's maybe not for everybody. It depends a little bit on what the actual wish is. And if it's a student that is very versatile, it is clearly something that they can do that prepares them very well for the next steps.